Hello and welcome to Gravitas WINS Conversations. Before podcasts became fashion, we had FM radios. We all grew up listening to songs, dramas, and news. Are there lessons that podcast hosts can learn from FM radio hosts? That is the topic of today's conversation. I'm happy to talk to my good friend John on this particular topic. He has been running Inbem FM, a successful radio, for almost a decade now. Hope you will enjoy this conversation too. Hi, John. Welcome to the conversation.
Hello, Jude. It's such a great joy to be with you. And thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for the invitation. I think it's a great platform. I see that many are being influenced by you. Congratulations and best wishes to go higher.
Thank you, John. Uh, John, let's talk about how you started InBEM FM. What was your motivation, and what has been your experience in the last decade or so?
Well, to begin with, I should say Inbam FM is a Tamil radio. I understand your audience are from many different states and even countries. So, Inbam means joy. So, that's the meaning of the radio. I understand some may not, or rather, some may need that to be explained. So, Inbam FM means a radio that brings joy, and I wanted to influence people, motivate people, and that's the reason we started this radio. And to talk about the root, I was once without motivation in life. At a very young age, after college, I lost both my parents to cancer, and life was very bleak and dark, and I could see myself going nowhere. And that is a time uh, I read the Bible, and my life changed forever. So I understood that there are a lot of people in the world who need motivation. The things of the world, the situations can really put us down. There could be depression, and I wanted to motivate people, and I found the internet radio to be a great platform, and that's how we started this.
Wonderful, John. I have seen you grow from those days, and I am seeing you where you are, and I can understand what motivation you have and you have been giving to others as well. So it has been wonderful, John, seeing you grow. John, are there any success stories that you can share with us? You talked about motivation. I completely agree that we need a lot of motivation, and there are a lot of things that are going around. Even as we speak, we are just getting out of COVID. There's a war going on. There is always something going on which will demotivate us. When you say this, that you are using InBem FM to motivate people, can you tell me something, somewhere people talk to you because of that FM radio that you have been hosting, and what has been your experience in that?
Exactly. I can go on and on and on. We have people listening to us from many different countries. That's one of the advantages of an internet radio. To be precise, according to statistics, we have listeners in over 200 countries. So once I was very surprised to see an email from Greenland. It was a
Mm.
businessman who was traveling, and I was so surprised. All of us were very, very happy, elated. And once there was an email when we were doing a live program. Somebody emailed us from a country called Belize, and none of us knew where it was. So we had to go search on the internet, and then we found it was a small country in US. So Belize, and things like this happen, surprises, pleasant surprises. And to talk about success stories, once there was a man who called us from Singapore. So he was a cab driver. So he said, as he was flipping through the channels on the internet, he found Inbam FM. So he said he wanted to listen to new Tamil movie songs. But we play gospel songs. As I told you, it's all about motivation. So he found us, he liked us, and he started listening to Inbam FM always when he was driving the car. Now it's fairly easy. with all the apps integrated into the car system, and even otherwise, a Bluetooth, aux cable, you could listen to Inbam FM. Well, right from the beginning, we've had people calling us to say they are listening in their cars when they drive. In fact, not just cars, trucks. There was a truck driver from US who called us. In fact, he resides in Canada and he drives from Canada to US and US to Canada. He takes things. So he says, I drive during the night. And when I listen to songs, it becomes monotonous. I tend to fall asleep. But radio is something that keeps you alive because there's a conversation going, and you haven't listened to it before, so there's a surprise element. You keep expecting. It keeps you awake. So he said, I always listen to Inbam FM when I drive my truck from Canada to US during the nights. And he said, thank you so much. And it's so motivating. And we've had parents calling us from different parts of the world. As we all know, bringing up children is extremely challenging in this world today. It was not, or rather, I would say the world is not as it was 30 years ago. So now it's quite challenging. So parents need motivation in this world and in this time. So when they see their teenage children going in a different direction, they don't know what to do. They would have tried all that they could, and they would be highly demotivated, wouldn't be knowing what to do, and with under so much of depression and stress. And many parents have called us to say, we feel so relaxed, we feel so motivated, we have a direction, we have a hope that our children will not get lost. We know they will find their direction, they will find the way to their destiny, and they will become great, and they will fulfill our expectations, and they will become good citizens in the world. So we've had success.
Wonderful.
Saying, if I have to say it is a success story, I would say these things, because the goal of this radio is to
Mm.
enable people to find their destiny, to walk in the right direction, to find hope, and to find belief in this world. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks, John, for sharing all of this. Now, we have a lot of podcasts, YouTube, Twitter Spaces, Clubhouse. In this particular area, when we have all of these things, why should somebody consider starting an internet radio?
Well, all of these are different platforms, and all of these give us opportunities and avenues to reach out to people and to influence them. There's no doubt about that. But an internet radio, or for that matter, the radio itself, is totally different. For better understanding, I would put it this way: we can imagine a radio station or an internet radio station is just the way of broadcasting that's different, but the way a radio functions, what is being broadcast is the same. The genre of music can change, the conversations in the talk show can change, but a radio is the same, whether it's on the internet or whether it's the terrestrial radio.
Does it need any government approval, or anybody can start an internet radio?
We don't need a government approval at this point in India for an internet radio. Anybody can go ahead and start one.
Okay, so how do I start if at all I want to start that?
Okay, the hardware that we need is simply a mic. If you just are the only person, a few accessories, and you need a website, you need a streaming server, and you're all set to go.
Oh, so any podcast host can also be a internet radio host.
Yes, it's slightly different. So we can imagine a radio as a compilation of podcasts, because there has to be content through the day, and interspersed with songs of choice. So that's a radio. So it would be an easier way to transition from a radio to a podcast host, because you're there talking, you're playing songs, or even to make a podcast out of a radio broadcast is much easier. But a podcast host is more on the conversation, and a radio host, you need a little more. Uh, how would I say? I'm not trying to compare a different set of skills. Like you need to assess or pick out the right song. If you're doing a conversation like this, you need to be ready with the songs and play the right song, and that would make the show tastier. Not that it's wrong to play something out of context, but when you play the right song, it makes it all the more interesting. So a radio would be a compilation of podcasts, playing songs in between. It's like a juggler, you need to be able to juggle. And podcast is definitely great. There's no doubt about that. But a podcast is simply a conversation. We are so focused on the conversation, no meddling with the mixing table, absolutely nothing. A podcast host can become a radio host, there's no doubt, but you need to develop a little more on listening to more songs, picking out the right songs. When we talk about songs, some music could have copyrights or royalties. You need to be careful about all that. If not, your stream could be muted or banned or whatever.
Okay, so wonderful. You're giving me a quite a good number of ideas that I can branch out from podcast. So thank you for that. Now you talked about getting calls from everywhere and also emails from different places, countries like Greenland. Now, how do you increase the engagement level in the internet radio, and how do you judge it? How do you judge there is an engagement, there are downloads, and so on and so forth? Are there statistics available?
Yes, yes. The servers have statistics. There are a lot of servers now than when we started. So I think anybody rather who wants to start an internet radio has to do their own research to find out the best server, the streaming server that would suit them. So the streaming servers have statistics. We can know what time and how many minutes a particular listener has been on the stream listening to us, and from where exactly they are listening. As I told you, Belize, the city, and even their IP address and so on. You have all the details today given by the uh, servers. Yes, talking about increasing the listeners, I think when we started, the social media was a great help in this. There were no strict algorithms. So you post something and tag somebody, the entire world is there seeing your flyer. It was much easier. So I think we grew like that. Social media was a great help to us in the growth. Today, I do know that it's a little different with the algorithms kicking in, but then social media can be a great help when you grow. And one more thing is, if you have a content, if you can cater to your target audience, they will spread by word of mouth. They are going to call their friends and say, hey, this is amazing. This radio is great. You should be listening to it. Or when they are touched and encouraged or whatever, with talking about a technical program on a radio, if they receive something, they're going to share it. It's very human. It's not just a radio. You use a soap, you use a perfume, and you say, hey, this is great brand. So it's in us, is in every human being to share what we have received, what has been good to us. So the focus should be on the content, the songs, and growth is going to be very natural in an organic way.
Lovely. You talked about, yeah, while talking about the growth, you also talked about the target audience. How do you get to know your listeners in a radio?
Well, your target audience are your choice. You know what is in you and who will listen to it. So, and that is how you find your target audience. And as I told you, the server gives us all the statistics about the people who are listening to us, and the listeners will connect. They love to connect. with a radio
Mm.
host whom they love. So that way we get to know our listeners better.
So in every streaming, every episode that you would have, would you say these are the ways to connect, or it's always from the website that you have? How does that engagement work?
Well, as I told you, our content is very, very focused. We don't, as I told you, we try, our motivation is based on the Bible. So we talk a lot about the Bible, and we talk a lot about Jesus. So that's what. So people who want to listen to that, they hook up with us. So we don't tell these are the people who should listen. Probably we may say this is what you're going to find in this program, but then we don't dictate who should and who should not listen. We don't do that.
Okay. So do you have any business or revenue models around the FM radio, whether you have or you may not have, but others have on the internet radio?
Well, there are revenue models. We are yet to incorporate one, and we doubt we will, if at all, because our focus, our goal is to motivate as many people as we can. So that is what we are doing. So we are keeping it free. But there are revenue models for internet radio. One is a subscription model, and one is you can have merchandise. So that way, when listeners are your fans, they would want to have your merchandise. Uh, Clothes are one thing, but then a mug, a coffee mug,
Mm.
would be a great idea for an internet radio, because we have homemakers, women calling us, connecting with us, and saying every morning it's Inbam FM in my kitchen. And even their children begin to ridicule. There are mothers who tell us their young kids who imitate me because that my program comes in the morning, and a coffee mug in the kitchen is a great idea. So merchandise, so you can have ads. But internet radio is a global thing, not a local radio like a terrestrial radio. Again, this is not comparison, but for better understanding, we have to put them side by side to understand what they are. So an advertiser, let's assume a shop. So if you are a
Mm.
restaurant owner, let's assume it that way, you would want your advertisement or your money that you pay for the promotion, you would want the return on investment. So promoting your restaurant to somebody in Canada is not going to bring the return on investment. He may be coming to India in a decade, once in a decade, so it doesn't matter. So finding advertising is a great idea, but then finding an advertiser for an internet radio is always a challenge, unless and until it's a global product. And these are some other ways, yeah.
Oh, fantastic, John. And you talked about mothers listening to your FM radio, the internet FM. And as I've told you earlier as well, my wife is also a fan and a listener of internet Inpam FM radio. So every morning in the kitchen, I can hear your voice.
Wow, that's great. Thank you.
uh, John, you have been running this for about a decade now, 10 years, 11 years you have been running. Now, as you have rightly said multiple times, you cannot really compare podcast with the internet radio. They are different. They are catering to a different kind of audience, probably. But from a medium perspective, it is the same. It is an audio medium which is at the background, doesn't interfere with the work that you are doing. You can listen to it while doing something else, and there are certain similarities in it. From that perspective, what are your advices for somebody who is starting in this particular medium? What are the things that they should be careful about for their success, but also what they should be careful about to avoid in doing things?
Okay, yes. Technically, it's just an audio stream. I don't deny that. It appears the same. Yes, it is the same in that perspective. But then, if you want your radio to be successful, content is king. So you
Hmm.
have to work on your content. People are not going to listen to something that would not relate to them, something that will not have takeaways for them. So you have to work on your content and your presentation. Of course, that comes with practice. So probably you can practice. One of our successful radio jockeys, we have a girl with an amazing voice, and she does a great job on her program. And when she began, she was very bland, if I have to put it that way, in her delivery. You know, a radio host should bring all the emotions in his or her voice. You don't get to see them. So there has to be a lot of modulation in the voice. You have to learn to bring your emotions in your voice, and the listener is just drawn into your conversation when you do that. So this girl was very bland, very flat, and I would say it would be kind of boring. I know it's a very strong word, but what it was. So, but then over a period of time, she just became a great RJ or a radio jockey. And then we found out her mother, or rather, she only told us that she always used to look at the mirror and keep talking and keep practicing the way she introduced herself, the program. She kept on practicing to an extent that her mother thought that she had gone crazy. With a desire to become a radio jockey, she has gone crazy. It has gone over her head. So, practice, as somebody said, practice makes perfect. So a radio is that, you talk about stories, not just conversation. So stories carry a lot of emotions. So you have to practice delivering your content. So again, work on your content, whatever it is. And as much information is what is going to make it interesting. You could also deliver something technical, but if you can, it's like, let us put it very simple. You go to a restaurant to have food. It's food. In another restaurant, it's just food. And in another restaurant, they just decorate it so beautifully. The very moment you look at it, your taste buds begin to ooze out saliva, and that's the way it is. Even a technical show can be made interesting with tidbits, with information. It's again the talent and the practice. More than the talent, it's practice. How you decorate your show, even something completely irrelevant that may not be technical, but that can be brought in as a garnish, as a decorative item. So it's again, that's how great radio jockeys stand out with these kind of small things.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot, John. And yeah, as you might know, when I graduated, I couldn't speak in English sentence. That's the way I improved myself. I would stand in front of the mirror and speak. Sometimes, yeah, I thought, am I going crazy? But that's the way you can improve. Practice is absolutely important if you want to improve.
Well, you're a great host today.
Thank you, John. Thank you. From wherever you are, John, what's the future? What does it look like? Would you branch out into something else? Would you have a podcast, or would you go for any revenue model? What are your future plans?
Well, I think I read this somewhere, many years ago. The camera was all film, you photograph something, you had to wash it in a dark room, and that's the way photographs were made. So I think it was Canon who came up with this digital, model of the photograph. So the people who were making the film, they laughed at them and said, who is going to buy a picture like that? Initially it was you click and the picture comes out. I forgot the technical name of that.
Kodak.
So yeah, so everybody was laughing, but then now we know Nobody is using film. People are clicking on their phones. So transition is very important. We have to foresee the future. So here, podcasts, YouTube. So what, the radio hasn't become obsolete. You cannot do away with the radio because of audiences like we have. As I told you, drivers, there was once a man in Dubai who called us. He drives 3 hours a day to work. So he said, I get stuck in traffic jam, and what keeps me, or what takes my mind away from the jam and prevents stress, is your radio. So there are audiences for this. But then, even we are seriously thinking about branching out into podcasts, YouTube, because they could be listening to us on the car, but when they are in their office or in their house, they would want to see something on YouTube, and they would appreciate a video. So it's about transitioning with technology and time and the expectation of the people. So radio cannot be done away with. If it was so, radio would have been obsolete. But now internet radio is there, and there are a lot of listeners, as I told you. For example, for us, by statistics, we have 1.5 lakhs of people. That's 150,000 every day. So, and with listeners in over 200 countries, as I told you. So that audience is going to be there. But then people also want to have podcasts. They would want to listen to that program one more time. So podcasts do help. So a radio station, an internet radio, even the terrestrial radios, they put clips on YouTube. They upload their clips on YouTube. I've seen that. So the social media platforms are very important nowadays. We cannot ignore them no matter what you're doing. Even if you're a radio, uh, highlights of any program would be welcomed by your listeners, or podcasts of shows will be welcomed by your listeners. Just be careful about the royalty of the music, because internet radio programs are always interspersed with songs and music. So if YouTube is very, very, very strict on copyrights, your program can be muted completely. So we just need to be careful to edit out those parts that may not have royalties and so on. That's a different topic altogether. Yeah, so that's what
Uh,
is important. So even we are looking at transitioning, or rather branching out into podcast, keeping this as a main tree. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you can always have this as a hub, and you can have a lot of spokes going out as podcast, YouTube, the ones that you talked about. Wonderful, John. Thank you for taking the time. If people have to listen to Inbam FM, how can they do that?
Very simple. Radio is compatible with all browsers, even on the phone. And one of the advantages is you can listen to any device. So it's www.inbumfm.com, and the language is in Tamil.
Wonderful. Uh, John, it has been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for taking the time, and good luck for whatever that you are going to do in the future.
Thank you, Joseph. It was great talking with you as well. And best wishes for all your endeavors.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. If you liked it, can you please share it at least with one of your friends? Thank you. Have a life of wins.